There's something timeless about 90s family sitcoms, the warmth, the laughter, the reliable rhythm of chaos followed by comfort. And for fans of Step by Step, those memories are more than just nostalgia. They're a return to a family that felt like our own. But while reruns still bring smiles, time has brought heartbreak too. Behind the charm and laughter of the show were real people, living real lives, some of which ended far too soon, and with more struggle than we ever saw on screen. Today, we take a closer look at 7 actors from Step by Step who are no longer with us, celebrating their contributions, reflecting on the lives they led, and honoring the personal stories that were often left in the shadows. These are not just TV personalities. They were individuals with hopes, setbacks, quiet triumphs, and in many cases, complex personal journeys. Let's begin. Suzanne Summers, the heart of the show, beyond the spotlight. To countless fans, Suzanne Summers was more than just a television actress. She was a symbol of optimism, resilience, and reinvention. While her role as Carol Foster Lambert on Step by Step remains iconic, especially for 90s audiences who grew up watching her navigate the chaos of a blended family, her journey to that point, and what followed, reveals a far deeper, more complicated story. Born on October 16, 1946, in San Bruno, California, Suzanne Marie Mahoney grew up in a turbulent household. Her father was an alcoholic, and Suzanne often spoke publicly about the trauma of her childhood. Those early hardships shaped her sense of determination and her deep desire for stability, something she later sought to embody through her on-screen roles as nurturing, reliable maternal figures. Her big break came in the late 1970s when she was cast as Chrissy Snow on Three's Company. The show became an instant success, and Summers' portrayal of the bubbly, naive blonde turned her into a household name. But her rapid rise was cut short in 1980 when she demanded a salary equal to her male co-star, John Ritter. At the time, she was earning $30,000 per episode, while Ritter earned $150,000. Summers also requested a portion of the show's profits, a bold move that the producers rejected. She was let go from the show after refusing to back down, and for years afterward, she was effectively blacklisted in Hollywood. That moment defined the rest of her professional life. Summers went from being America's sweetheart to an emblem of what happens when women challenge the status quo. In later interviews, she explained that her dismissal from Three's Company cost her not only her career momentum, but also friendships in the industry. "I was labeled difficult," she said in a 2020 interview, "but I knew I had to take that hit so future women might be paid fairly." She spent the 1980s working in smaller roles and hosting variety specials, while simultaneously reinventing herself as a businesswoman. It wasn't until 1991 that Summers made her primetime return in Step by Step, co-starring alongside Patrick Duffy. The series, part of ABC's TGIF lineup, ran for 7 seasons and became a staple of family entertainment. Her character, Carol Foster Lambert, blended firm parenting with heartfelt affection, and Summers quickly reminded the world why she had once been one of television's most beloved actresses. Yet even during Step by Step, insiders noted tensions behind the scenes. While publicly she maintained a cheerful image, Suzanne was deeply involved in shaping her character and often clashed with producers over creative control. She also reportedly felt sidelined by ABC when the show received less promotion in its later seasons. But true to form, she stayed professional on screen, never letting private frustrations overshadow her performance. Outside of acting, Summers made perhaps her most lasting impact in the world of health and wellness. In the early 90s, she became a pop culture sensation with the Thigh Master, a piece of exercise equipment that, combined with her charisma, sold over 10 million units worldwide. She published more than 25 books, including Ageless, Toxic, and Sexy Forever, most of which focused on alternative medicine, hormone therapy, and aging. Some of her views, especially her rejection of chemotherapy and promotion of bioidentical hormone therapy, drew sharp criticism from medical professionals. Nevertheless, she developed a loyal following and became a voice for holistic health, especially among women navigating midlife transitions. Her personal life was often portrayed as idyllic. She married Canadian television host Alan Hamill in 1977, and the couple became known for their devotion to each other. But according to close sources, their relationship was also deeply intertwined with their business ventures, and some suggested that their professional codependence created immense pressure behind closed doors. Still, they remained partners until the very end, with Hamill by her side throughout her final years. Summers also dealt with significant health struggles. She was first diagnosed with breast cancer in 2000 and underwent a lumpectomy and radiation, refusing chemotherapy in favor of alternative treatments. For over 2 decades, she remained vocal about her decision and credited her survival to a combination of lifestyle changes, nutritional regimens, and hormone therapy. However, in July 2023, her cancer returned, this time more aggressively. She passed away at her Palm Springs home on October 15, 2023, just 1 day shy of her 77th birthday. At the time of her death, Summers had built a health and lifestyle empire estimated to be worth between $100 million and $120 million, with revenue streams from product endorsements, supplement lines, skincare products, book royalties, and real estate investments. Her Palm Springs estate, often featured in lifestyle publications, was a reflection of her taste for glamour, comfort, and wellness-oriented living. But her legacy can't be measured only in dollars. Suzanne Summers was a woman who refused to be reduced by typecasting, by scandal, or by age. She stood up for fair pay before it was fashionable, turned her pain into purpose, and inspired millions to take control of their health and self-image. She was at once a glamorous celebrity and an approachable guide, a sitcom star and a business mogul, a figure of laughter and one of unrelenting determination. David Graff, the energetic force with a quiet battle. To fans of 80s and 90s cinema, David Graff was a familiar and beloved face, the embodiment of high-energy comedy, best known for his role as Eugene Tackleberry in the Police Academy series. His portrayal of the trigger-happy yet lovable officer became one of the most enduring characters of the franchise, and his exaggerated bravado and loyalty made him a standout in a cast filled with comedic talent. But behind the booming voice and militaristic swagger lay a quieter, more complex man, one who longed to be seen for more than just the gun-toting caricature he had perfected. Born Paul David Graff on April 16, 1950 in Zanesville, Ohio, he grew up in a deeply religious family in Lancaster. From an early age, David displayed a passion for performance. He graduated from Otterbein College with a degree in theater and later earned a Master of Fine Arts from Ohio University. His classical training was evident to those who saw him on stage early in his career. He had the poise, depth, and technique of a seasoned, dramatic actor. But like many performers in Hollywood, the role that gave him national attention also became a double-edged sword. Graff's breakthrough came in 1984 when he was cast in Police Academy as Officer Tackleberry, a character so outlandishly devoted to firearms and police procedure that he bordered on satire. Yet Graff infused Tackleberry with such sincerity and heart that the character became instantly iconic. He reprised the role in 6 Police Academy sequels, several spin-offs, and even guest appearances on television. However, the immense popularity of the franchise also led to a creative pigeonhole. Casting directors saw him as the intense comic lawman and rarely considered him for anything outside that mold. This typecasting became a source of quiet frustration for David. Despite his ability to command attention with comedic energy, he longed for more grounded, dramatic roles. He once told an interviewer, "It's a blessing to be recognized, but also a bit of a curse when that's the only thing people want from you." He auditioned for Shakespearean theater roles and dramatic TV parts, but often found doors closed. The entertainment industry, with its appetite for predictable casting, rarely embraced the depth he knew he had to offer. Still, Graff remained a working actor, steadily appearing in guest roles on television shows like Star Trek, Voyager, Touched by an Angel, The West Wing, and The Dukes of Hazzard. He also lent his voice to animated series and appeared in stage productions whenever possible. On Step by Step, his recurring role as Dave Roberts, a spirited, rule-bound police officer, was a clear nod to his Tackleberry persona. While brief, his appearances added a jolt of energy to the show's family-friendly tone, reminding viewers of the comedic sharpness he had refined over years. Off-camera, David was described by friends and family as introspective, deeply spiritual, and quietly generous. He married his college sweetheart, Katharine Graff, and the couple had 2 sons. He was intensely devoted to his family and made a conscious effort to shield them from the glare of Hollywood. Unlike many of his peers, he never chased celebrity for its own sake. His fulfillment came from doing the work, providing for his family, and maintaining his integrity. Yet, like many performers, Graff wrestled with periods of insecurity. Some close to him mentioned long bouts of self-doubt and anxiety, especially as roles became scarcer. The late 1990s were challenging. Hollywood's shift toward younger, flashier talent left many character actors of his generation with fewer opportunities. Graff often supplemented his income through convention appearances, voice work, and guest spots, all while quietly pursuing more meaningful artistic expression in regional theater. Health-wise, Graff appeared fit and active to those around him, but he was dealing with elevated blood pressure and other cardiovascular risk factors that he often dismissed. He had no known history of major illness, which made what happened on April 7, 2001, all the more shocking. While attending a family wedding in Phoenix, Arizona, David collapsed unexpectedly. The cause was later identified as a massive heart attack. He was just 50 years old. His sudden death left his family and colleagues devastated. He had been scheduled to appear at a number of fan events and had recently expressed interest in writing a memoir about life in Hollywood's second tier, those recognizable faces who form the backbone of film and television, but rarely receive top billing. Many believe that had he lived longer, he would have found a second act, perhaps in writing, teaching, or directing, areas where his thoughtfulness and experience could have flourished. At the time of his death, David Graff's estate was modest, consisting mainly of residuals from his film and TV work and a family home in California. He never amassed great wealth, but he left behind something more valuable, a legacy of professionalism, warmth, and a work ethic that earned him deep respect within the industry. Tony Longo, the gentle giant with a fading spotlight. With his towering height, rugged frame, and deep-set eyes that flickered between comic mischief and unexpected tenderness, Tony Longo had a presence that made him instantly memorable. He stood at an imposing 6 feet 6 inches tall, a physical attribute that often defined the roles he was offered, but never the full measure of his talent. On Step by Step, he portrayed Soupy, the well-meaning, goofy neighbor whose brief appearances often drew hearty laughs. But for those who followed his career more closely, Tony was much more than a sitcom side character. He was one of Hollywood's most reliable, gentle giants, a man who brought surprising vulnerability to roles that easily could have been one-dimensional. Born on August 19, 1961, in Brooklyn, New York, Tony's early life was far from glamorous. He attended Marist High School in Bayonne, New Jersey, and later pursued a degree at the University of Rhode Island, where he was a standout athlete playing both football and basketball. It was during these formative years that he discovered his knack for comedy and performance. Friends from college recalled that he could light up a room with impressions, quick wit, and a booming laugh that preceded him into any space. Tony's size made him a natural fit for tough guy roles, and he leaned into this strength as he began his acting career in the early 1980s. He appeared in 16 Candles and later became a familiar face in action comedies and sports-themed films. In Feds, he played a hulking but sweet-natured recruit, while in The Last Boy Scout, he portrayed a hardened enforcer. His roles often required little dialogue. His body did the talking, but when given the chance, Tony could deliver lines with comic timing and emotional depth that surprised even seasoned co-stars. Hollywood, however, has never been kind to actors who defy neat categorization. Tony was typecast relentlessly. Casting directors wanted him for his size, not his skill. Despite appearing in over 60 film and television projects, including Eraser, Angels in the Outfield, First and 10, and Suburban Commando, Tony was rarely offered leading roles or complex characters. The breadth of his ability was overshadowed by a system that placed more value on image than on range. As he once said in an interview, "I'm the guy you remember, but not the one you call first." In Step by Step, he was brought in to play Soupy in the early 1990s, a friendly neighbor whose bulk and good-natured personality offered a humorous counterbalance to the central family chaos. His appearances were short but memorable, and his character fit neatly into a career filled with lovable brutes and comedic musclemen. Off-screen, however, Tony's life took a more somber turn. As his career slowed in the 2000s, so did his public visibility. Friends from the industry noted that he became increasingly private, even withdrawn. Years of strenuous physical upkeep, often encouraged by roles that demanded he stay big, had taken a toll on his body. He began suffering from congestive heart failure, and his kidney function began to decline. Whispers circulated that he had once used performance-enhancing supplements to maintain his frame, a common practice among actors of his era, though never confirmed publicly. Emotionally, Tony carried the quiet weight of being underappreciated. While beloved by those who worked with him, he felt the sting of near misses and almost breakthroughs. He had once been considered for larger, recurring roles in mainstream sitcoms and films, but decisions often favored more conventionally bankable faces. Despite this, Tony never lost his sense of humor or his generosity. Many remembered him for mentoring younger actors, offering advice without ego, and always cheering from the sidelines. His personal life was less stable. He had been in several long-term relationships, none of which lasted. He had one daughter from a previous relationship, though sources suggest that custody disputes and emotional strain led to estrangement in later years. He lived alone in a modest apartment in Marina del Rey, surrounded by memorabilia from his films and sports jerseys from his college days. A neighbor once described his home as a shrine to what he loved most: sports, movies, and laughter. Tony Longo passed away peacefully in his sleep on June 21, 2015, at the age of 53. The cause was heart failure, compounded by long-term health complications. His passing barely made headlines, another example of how easily the entertainment world forgets its workhorses. But for fans of Step by Step and countless other shows and films, his loss was deeply felt. Peggy Rhea, the matriarch who never got her due. In a television landscape filled with archetypes and exaggerated personalities, Peggy Rhea stood out by doing something far more difficult, making the ordinary feel extraordinary. On Step by Step, she played Ivy Baker, a warm, humorous, and grounding grandmother figure whose very presence brought a sense of stability to the otherwise chaotic blended Lambert Foster household. With just a knowing glance or perfectly timed line, Rhea could shift a scene from slapstick to sincerity. But this quiet power didn't come out of nowhere. It was the result of decades of dedicated work of a performer who had mastered the art of being indispensable without ever demanding the spotlight. Born on March 31, 1921, in Los Angeles, California, Peggy Jane Rhea began her career not as an actress, but behind the scenes. She worked as a production secretary at MGM during the 1940s, which gave her a unique perspective on the business from the inside. It was only after several years in support roles that she began to pursue acting seriously, and once she did, it became clear she had a gift. Her early stage experience led to character roles on some of television's most iconic series, including I Love Lucy, Perry Mason, and Bonanza. She had a distinctive look and voice, instantly recognizable, reassuring, and authentic. Rhea found her sweet spot in the 1970s and 1980s, a golden period for television matriarchs and comic relief characters. She played Rose Burton on The Waltons, an earthy, no-nonsense woman who provided both comic levity and moral clarity. Later, she appeared as Lulu Hogg, the hilariously sharp-tongued wife of Boss Hogg on The Dukes of Hazzard, a role that revealed her impeccable timing and fearless delivery. Throughout her career, she became a fixture in family-oriented sitcoms and dramas, often cast as the nurturing, slightly sassy aunt or grandmother, a role she could elevate with unmatched ease. Yet, despite her extensive resume, Rhea was often confined to a narrow type. Hollywood, especially in the mid to late 20th century, had little room for actresses of her body type and age beyond domestic roles. She was seldom, if ever, offered leading parts or complex, emotionally demanding characters. This creative limitation did not go unnoticed by her colleagues. Several co-stars and producers have since spoken about her range, which was far greater than the roles she was given allowed her to demonstrate. It frustrated her deeply, according to those who knew her well. She had the dramatic chops to do more, but the industry wasn't interested in letting her step outside of the warm and wise mold. Her personal life remained mostly under the radar. She never married and had no children, a choice or perhaps a consequence, about which she never spoke publicly. Friends describe her as intensely private, though not lonely. She had a close-knit circle of long-time industry friends and was known for her kindness, wit, and quiet generosity. There were quiet whispers in Hollywood circles about a long-term romantic involvement with a prominent producer, but out of respect or discretion, or both, the details were never made public. Rhea herself never courted attention, never indulged in publicity stunts or scandal. She simply worked, and she worked well. In her later years, Peggy Rhea faded from the public eye. As opportunities for older actresses became even more scarce, she chose a life of quiet retirement, reportedly living in Toluca Lake, California. Those who visited her recall a home filled with books, old scripts, and the memorabilia of a long and steady career. She continued to correspond with former co-stars and occasionally offered advice to young actors she mentored in private. Peggy Rhea passed away on February 5, 2011, from complications related to congestive heart failure. She was 89 years old. Her passing was noted with reverence by those in the industry, though it did not make major headlines. That quiet exit was fitting for a woman who had always let her work speak louder than any press release, and what a body of work it was. From the Beverly Hillbillies to Grace Under Fire, from The Love Boat to Step by Step, she left a legacy that wasn't flashy but was deeply felt. Her characters may have rarely been the center of attention, but they were always the heart of the room. She made viewers feel safe, understood, and comforted. For many, she was the grandmother they wished they had, or the one they felt they did, even if only on Friday nights through the screen. Al Molinaro, a classic soul in a changing world. Al Molinaro had one of those faces you instantly trusted. As Joe Passarelli on Step by Step, he was the warm, quirky presence that tied generations together. But it was his role as Al Del Vecchio on Happy Days that made him a household name. Al was a television comfort food, a character whose mere presence made you feel safe. But the man behind the role was far more complex. Al was known to be meticulous, even rigid when it came to creative matters. He insisted on having input into his lines, clashed with writers over character direction, and famously walked off a late career project when script approval was denied. He wasn't difficult, he was principled. He believed in the integrity of storytelling, and he fought to protect it. Behind his affable screen persona, Al faced real challenges. His family life was filled with turmoil, including legal troubles involving his son and a long-standing feud with his brother over inheritance matters. Still, he never let personal chaos define him publicly. He built financial security through strategic real estate investments, owning properties in California and Wisconsin that became the foundation of his multi-million-dollar estate. Al Molinaro passed away on October 30th, 2015, at the age of 96, due to health complications. He left behind a legacy built not just on charm and comedic timing, but on unwavering conviction, discipline, and love for the art of television. Nedra Vols, the firecracker who faded too soon. In Step by Step, Nedra Vols played Mrs. Slayback, the feisty older woman who delivered laughs with every sharp-tongued line. It was a role she'd perfected over decades in television, from Different Strokes to The Dukes of Hazzard. Nedra had that rare ability to take a minor role and make it unforgettable. But for all her on-screen vivacity, her real life was marked by quiet challenges and quiet courage. Typecast throughout her career, Nedra was rarely given the opportunity to showcase the full breadth of her talent. Worse still, she was reportedly underpaid for much of her work, and in the 1980s she took legal action against an agent accused of mishandling her retirement funds. In her later years, she battled cognitive decline and required full-time care, placed in the home of a distant relative, where concerns were raised about the handling of her personal finances and memorabilia. Despite a rich legacy of characters and decades of audience love, she passed largely unnoticed by the industry. Nedra died on January 20th, 2003, at the age of 94. Her passing wasn't marked with fanfare, but her memory lives on in every laugh she earned and every scene she stole. Mickey Jones, the drummer who found a second act in comedy. Mickey Jones appeared in Step by Step as Virgil, the gruff biker with a surprisingly tender heart. It was a role tailor-made for him, part rebel, part teddy bear. But Mickey's story began far from sitcom sets. He was once the drummer for Bob Dylan, playing during one of Dylan's most controversial transitions, from acoustic to electric. Later, he toured with Kenny Rogers before turning to acting full-time. His life, however, wasn't without turbulence. Known for his temper and his passion in equal measure, Mickey often found himself at odds with directors and co-stars. His behavior, sometimes erratic, led to lost roles and whispers of instability. Still, he pushed forward. Transitioning into acting offered him structure, and his work in comedies, including Home Improvement, helped him find a second identity as a lovable character actor. But he struggled with declining health later in life, compounded by past habits and unresolved emotional wounds. He was reportedly estranged from one of his children, and a legal dispute with a former spouse over financial obligations hung over his later years. Mickey Jones passed away on February 7th, 2018, at age 76. Despite the hardships, he remained beloved for his memorable blend of grit and heart. Though the lights have gone out for these 7 beloved members of the Step by Step family, their warmth, humor, and humanity continue to live on in the episodes we revisit and the memories they helped create. Each brought something unique to the screen, something more than just a performance. They offered comfort, laughter, and the kind of familiarity that made us feel like we were part of the family, too. Who was your favorite actor from Step by Step? And what scene or episode do you remember most fondly? Let us know in the comments below. If this tribute moved you, don't forget to give the video a like, subscribe for more stories behind the stars, and share this video with someone who still smiles when they hear that unforgettable theme song. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.